Face to face, hand to hand, film to film.
Welcome to another episode of Film to Film. My name is Nick Linier. I'm here with my good friend James Shergan. Today is November 3rd, so it's been a little bit after Halloween. However, just following a little bit of the theme, we decided to do a horror movie. However, the movie we decided to do is not the latest Halloween movie, yet we're going to talk about it for a little bit.
Yeah, we talked about Halloween Kills last year, so we're just kind of tying up that thread.
Exactly. Although this is not today's movie. Today's movie will be Drag Me to Hell, but let's put that aside. Let's table it, and let's talk about Halloween Ends for just a little bit. Just mainly because, one, we talked about Halloween Kill in the last movie. We talked about the first one, Halloween Kills, and this obviously is like the last iteration of this reboot, because Halloween has been rebooted, I believe, 4 times now.
Yeah. I mean, anyone that believes it's actually ended forever, I mean, they're probably going to be proven wrong in 5 years, but we'll see.
I mean, it's always a bad idea to end Michael Myers. Oh, by the way, yeah, if you're new listening to our podcast, everything we say has spoilers. Anyways, Let's continue.
Which for a new movie does matter a little bit. For Drag Me to Hell, which is over a decade old, who cares?
Right. Anyways, so Halloween Ends. Once again, they killed Michael Myers, and once again, we'll figure out how they revive him. To be honest, this one actually makes me excited to see how the fuck they're gonna do it. Like, how are you gonna explain it?
Might have to go just Friday the 13th. No, that wouldn't even work. Part 6 style, where he's like zombie, but no, they kind of they incinerated him or put him in an industrial shredder. So I don't know exactly how you're gonna do that. I think you just gotta kind of be like, yeah, this movie didn't happen. We're gonna start over.
Yeah, I guess that's the only route is just let's forget about this one. So I have opinions. You have opinions. This has been a very controversial movie among critics and fans alike. But I would like to hear your opinions.
Yeah. So I watched this film probably just a couple days after it came out on Peacock. Probably like, what was that? October, mid-month October, basically. Mm-hmm. And I would say for the first like 30 to 40 minutes, I was like, okay, interesting. I'm curious where they're going. And then I saw where it was going, and I just had a very, very difficult time buying it. I admire what a strange twist and thing they're going for in this film, but it just didn't quite work for me, is what I would say. And so I especially did not care for the last let's see, what is it, like hour and 10 minutes, hour and 20 minutes after it kind of becomes more obvious where they're going. Because I really like the opening. I think it's very intriguing and stuff, what they're doing. But I think perhaps if this film, and I've heard some other people say this, if this film had been kind of like more of your independent sequel or something, and you just have like some other like legendary serial killer in the Michael Myers spot rather than Michael Myers, perhaps I would have liked it more. Perhaps I will even like it more on a rewatch, just because I know a little bit more what to expect. But I did not care for it.
So I feel a little bit like, so I also, just like you, admire what they tried to do, and I do believe that they failed. Although I think we might be disagreeing on the what, on where they failed. So, I mean, again, full spoilers. Here, this movie has a new character, innocent teenage who was babysitting and accidentally kills the kid he's babysitting. Everyone blames him on all the shit. Not just that, but also Michael Myers had disappeared once again. So it's like, okay, you are the new person we're gonna hate. So it sort of continues the theme of Halloween Kills, and that I actually appreciated. That the theme-wise, it continues that theme, right? You got you got a town that has been in like where evil has gone onto the town and it's no longer impersonating Michael Myers, but just town itself. All that very beautiful. And granted, I hated Halloween Kill because of that side plot.
You mean they didn't kill Evil that night? Evil didn't die that night?
Oh no, Evil did not die that night. But interestingly enough, this one did it better. And one reason is because apparently they got a different writer for this movie.
Oh, did they? Okay.
Yeah, apparently they got a different screenwriter. So they have two writers in this movie. And something tells me that perhaps one writer was like, you know what? I love what you did here. Evil ends tonight. Let's scratch that, though. Let's not repeat it a million times.
Yeah. For me, it's a really bizarre trilogy, too. It's like the original reboot, 2017, 2018, whatever it was. That's my favorite of the trilogy, easily. And that one, I felt like I just thought they would build more off of that. And Halloween Kills is kind of a strange sequel to that. And this is like an even more bizarre sequel to the sequel to that. So it is very interesting what they've done with it. It's almost like three separate ideas of where to go. And I thought it would kind of be more cohesive and towards leading to a place.
So that's the part where, Halloween Kills, they had an ambitious idea of trying to tell a story that goes beyond the boogeyman just straight up killing. However, at the same time, they mixed that with the boogeyman actually straight up killing and having the biggest kill count in any Halloween movie. Halloween Kills. He kills more than any other Halloween movie.
Way more than this film.
Than any other Halloween movie.
Yeah.
The kill count is amazing on that film.
Yeah. And I think that's why I like that film just a little more, is like all the stupid stuff they tried to do, or all this quote unquote smart stuff, didn't really work for me, but it did have a kill count. And so for me, that was good enough to, get like a 5.5 out of 10.
Right. The thing with that one is that there were three issues. One, it was just extremely uneven. We're trying to have like some weighty theme that completely clashed with the bonkers kills, that completely clashed with the poorly written and terrible humor. And that's what made Halloween Kill so bad to me, because it was just a mix of, tonally speaking, it had no tone. This one, when it came to humor, it toned it down, because even the first one in this quote unquote trilogy had the silly humor. This one toned down the humor, so I appreciate that. This one,
I think that's probably smart too. I don't have any appreciation of the humor in any of these three films.
Right.
So, you might as well not have it.
Exactly. This one toned down the humor. This one continued actually the theme of the second one, but actually better written. You have this character. The town, the city itself becomes a character in and of itself, and it's a character almost as gruesome as Michael Myers. It's just very cruel character, right? The fucking marching band boys, which is really hilarious because the bullies are like from marching band. Abusive parents. It doesn't matter who it is. Everyone is just a complete asshole, and in a way that that works for me, because it's like, okay, now Michael Myers is part of the town, and the movie does a good job at setting that up. Yeah. However, and this is the part I agree with you, it's a Halloween movie. So Halloween, it's not at the same level as Star Wars, but it's at a level where you got the fanboys that you gotta fucking spoon feed what they want, and you got the production company that knows that. Production company knows how to make money, and the money maker is Michael Myers. He's not this Corey guy who accidentally killed a child and is becoming crazy and becomes the next killer. However, and that's why I agree with you that had this been a different franchise, probably would work better. However, I personally like the balls. I like the balls of the directors and the people who actually did this. Mm-hmm. This is almost like Halloween 3 in the sense that it's like, let's have Michael Myers show up and be like a geriatric man who just can barely do anything. Let's have him there, just be pathetic, have this like dude who fell off a bridge being able to beat him up. You know,
I mean, I missed the part at the end of Halloween Kills where he tore his ACL. I mean, the guy was a madman one movie ago.
I know. Well, this is supposed
to just have a bunch of injuries in that and just never got the proper recovery.
Yeah,
like concussion protocol or something.
In all the previous movies, he would end up at some sort of hospital. Here not so much. Anyways, I mean, again, the cohesion in this quote unquote trilogy doesn't work because obviously you have the first the first one, he's there but not super powerful. The second one, he fucking kills all the firefighters who have axes by himself with a knife. So he's a superhuman, and in this third one, he's like this old man who can barely move. So when it comes to Michael Myers, yes, I agree. The coherence, if you view it as a trilogy, is bad. But if you did come to me from Halloween 1 to this one, Halloween Ends, and you take away Halloween Kills, I actually would buy it. Because in the first one, he's burnt. He killed a bunch of people, and then he's burnt. And then when you get to this one, he has not shown up for many years. And he's hiding in a cave. And the town is all shitty because he killed a bunch of people. All right, that works. To me, that works. And all of that is great. Except for, you know what? Kill him. Have him die in the middle of the movie out of old age. He gives the torch magically to this new guy somehow, which, I mean, the movie doesn't explain beyond they look into each other's eyes.
I know, right?
But have that, and then have this guy do the kills. Because, I mean, the kills in this movie, the few that there are, and in the hands of Corey, are actually really fun.
Yeah, they're not bad. Yeah, I mean, I would say the kills in all three of the David Gordon Green ones are mostly pretty good.
Yeah. So you have that, and you basically ended with this, you kind of ended it by just having this guy taking on the torch of, your serial killer in a Halloween film.
Right.
I appreciate that. However, to me, what ruins it is at the end, when he's shot, he sort of never dies. He keeps on waking up, and then you have Michael Myers kill him. And I'm like, why do you bring back Michael Myers? And that's the part. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Anyways, that's a part where I think the movie messed up. I think it was brave to try something new, but not brave enough to actually fully do it. Was this the director? Was it the producers telling the director, no. We gotta have that final fight between Laurie and Michael Myers. We just have to.
Yeah, I mean, I think your theory might be right, where it's like maybe pulled too many different directions and doesn't pull it off. I do admire the Coneys for just trying something so different. We should probably move on to our main film pretty soon. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. This is one of those films where I should just come back to it in 5 years. It's really weird. It's not at all what I expected it to be. Yeah, I just wonder if I'll like it more if it's just viewed as kind of like this weird independent one too. One interesting thing is I have seen people comparing this to the Rob Zombie Halloweens because he kind of goes into somewhat similar directions. I'm not a zombie head. I don't personally care for those films too much, but those might be interesting for you to watch at some point because I don't think you've seen either of those, right?
No, not really. I probably have seen more of the regular Halloweens now than the zombie ones.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I should definitely look at those. Anyways, now we are going to jump into the next movie.
All right, let's do it.
So now we're going to talk about good old Drag Me to Hell. Now, before... Go ahead.
Before we get started, I would say that I would definitely watch a Sam Raimi directed Halloween. And I would let him do whatever the hell he wanted.
Oh, God. That would be so...
It could be totally insane, especially if he brought the same energy he brought to this film to that. Anyways, I totally interrupted. Please.
No, you're right. Actually, so before we start, I'll just throw in the plot real quick. I got this out of IMDb. So, a lone officer who evicts an old woman from her home finds herself the recipient of a supernatural curse. Desperate, she turns to a seer to try to save her soul, while evil forces work to push her to a breaking point. What do we think?
Sure. Yeah, it works.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, it's a relatively simple plot, and that tends to be how I like a lot of my horror movies. So,
yeah.
I can roll with it.
Yeah, I just said, like, a mortgage banker got cursed.
Yeah.
And she tries to figure it out. The end.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, this film is directed by Sam Raimi, which I do agree with you. Halloween by him would be really interesting. Now, Sam Raimi is he's really known for his Evil Dead series. Evil Dead 1, 2, Army of Darkness, and I think there's a TV show. He also directed The Gift in 2000. He did the Spider-Man's Spider-Man 1, 2, and 3, 2000, the 02, 04, and 07, with Tobey Maguire and Kirsten Dunst. After 2007, he did this film. And after that, he did Oz, the Great and Powerful, which is apparently god-awful. And he did not direct for almost 10 years until he did Doctor Strange.
Yeah, so he's actually only done 2 films since then. One that was just released this year, so that's kind of crazy.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, I read somewhere that he was really traumatized with Spider-Man 3. And by traumatized, more like he had his ideas and then and had like the script basically written, and the production company went to him and they were like, "We want Venom in the movie," and he's like, "What?" So very last minute, he had to add a new villain, and the movie came really weird and convoluted, and got panned. Even though I enjoyed it back in 2007.
I actually watched it for the first time a year or two ago, and I don't think it's nearly as bad as the reputation is. But I think this might be one of those where like Halloween ends. It's like you come back to it, and you can look out for certain things, and you can enjoy it in a certain way. Even though I don't think anyone would say Spider-Man 3 is like his best film or anything like that. But I had a good time with it.
Yeah,
when I watched it, yeah.
Interestingly enough, I've only seen it once. I saw it in theaters, and I believe. The people who I watched it with, they all hated it, and I actually enjoyed it. I thought it was funny, and it had lots of the Raimi elements.
Yeah. I think it's also interesting to look back to. I think a lot of superhero films at this time, it was like before Marvel had really become Marvel at that time. And so it's like, it was probably just being compared to the Nolan films, and like The Dark Knight had just come out, which is a lot of people still consider the best superhero film. So I think in some ways it was just suffering a little bit in comparison to those films too.
Perhaps, although Raimi is, he's credited from bringing back superheroes to the big screen. I mean, because, the last good superhero movie before Raimi's was 1989's Batman, or maybe Batman, or the second Batman, the one with Pfeiffer.
Yeah, I think that original Spider-Man is really a very seminal film in terms of like bringing superhero films and stuff like that to the conscious. But if you remember back to the time, it's like Nolan was kind of stealing his thunder to some extent, especially with The Dark Knight. I mean, both those films were really acclaimed.
Right.
But I think looking back at it, we can appreciate both of them for sure.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, very different movies. They're both equally. I mean, they're both. Well, no. Spider-Man 3 is not as good as Dark Knight, but Spider-Man 2 is. Spider-Man 2 falls.
And Nolan's third film too is kind of a mess too. Exactly. I like it as well, but it's not like that lives up to the name of the first two either.
Exactly. I mean, and interestingly enough, I put Spider-Man 2, the 2004 movie, in the same level as The Dark Knight in
it's really good. Yeah,
enjoyability. Very different
very good
films.
Yeah. Though. And you know, that's one where, if like, for me at least, my introduction to Sam Raimi was those Spider-Man films, but it's you know, coming back to them after seeing like his origins in Evil Dead and stuff, especially with Doc Ock, you can really see some of that influence, not only in Drag Me to Hell, but also Spider-Man 2. In just the way that he uses the camera and stuff. And I think it does still stand out, even compared with like the new CG and stuff coming out with superhero films these days too, in the sense that it's just a little different, you know.
Yeah,
it's nice to have a little variety.
I mean, his hand's still there. Like, you can even see his hand in Doctor Strange, in the Multiverse of Madness. I mean, even there you get to see his hands, and highly enjoyable. Have you seen that one yet?
I did, yeah. I saw it on plane, and yeah, I enjoyed it too. Yeah, there, you know, it's not like it's Evil Dead 4, but there's just enough in there that you're like, Sam Raimi still is doing some stuff. And I don't love Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, but I was entertained, and I enjoyed watching it more than I expected.
I mean, as a whole movie, perhaps not the best, but there are sequences. I'm not gonna say scenes, straight up sequences that are just amazing. And again, that's all that you can definitely feel Raimi's hands. Now, we're talking about a whole bunch of other movies, but the reason I just wanted to nerd out a little bit on Raimi. I think he's a very fun director to watch. It's a shame that he had to do such a terrible movie in 2013 to not being able to make another one almost 10 years after.
A terrible film that neither of us have seen.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. Well, I'm sorry. Like, who wants to see Oz the Great and Powerful?
I can't say that I'm going to watch it tonight. No.
No, and from almost every single count I've seen, it's terrible. Like, I've never heard anything positive about that movie. Anyways, yes, this was by Sam Raimi. The right was also written by him along with his brother Ivan Raimi, which they both also wrote the screenplay for Army of Darkness, as well as Spider-Man 3. Interestingly enough, apparently they originally came up with the story back in 1989, and they actually finished the screenplay for it in 2002. So that's kind of interesting in the sense that this movie fits really well in 2009.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it's hard not to see it. I mean, we were both at the very end of our college times there. I think I had graduated by then, or just before then. So it's like the financial crisis and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And it's hard not to see that as being at least somewhat intentional.
Right, exactly. So that's why it's crazy that this was written so much earlier. Like 2002.
Yeah, they must have like updated it somehow to respond to kind of current events. But I think they do a pretty good job. I mean, like, it's not like this film has like a ton of subtext, but I do think it's definitely very much of the moment and stuff, and like feeling the recession and that kind of thing. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, for sure. I actually read one interview that he did that's posted in cinema.com, and so. Apparently, because I mean, this film, there's a demon called Lamia, and apparently Sam Raimi was like, I did not do any research on this demon. I found its name and decided to make a movie about it, but apparently it's like not at all what I wrote, which is kind of funny. It's like, sounded cool.
So he's not Stanley Kubrick.
No, not at all. And also, in that same interview, basically he was saying that thanks to the Spider-Man movies, he learned how to use CGI, which I think is one of the low points of this film.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's okay. It could be worse, but this film does enough, like, practically and stuff that I do.
It has enough charm for you.
Yeah, exactly. So. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if that much CGI from 2009 has aged well, I mean, even the Spider-Man stuff is somewhat dated these days. Although, I mean, those films obviously had a much larger budget than Drag Me to Hell. But yeah, I mean, I think you would definitely say that the CGI is not a strong point at this point.
Right, exactly. No, but it's kind of funny because like when was the last time you saw this movie?
So I did see this film last year, but before that, I do wonder if we saw it together. I saw it in the theater in 2009.
Yeah, we saw it together with our friends.
Yeah, and I remember that being a hell of a time at the theater. I don't think it was even very busy. I think it was in Bellevue, which is kind of the bougie suburb of Seattle. And I just remember kind of it being a riot. It was like people were definitely very into the film, even though it wasn't like a super packed theater. Mm-hmm. I don't know if your memory is the same as me, but I just remember people being really sucked into everything going on.
Yeah, I don't remember if we watched it in Bellevue. I did not remember that. Regardless of where we watched it, it was not a big screening, or not. It was not a lot of people, but it was a very active crowd. I think everyone knew what they were watching. The folks who didn't, I guess maybe they didn't have as much fun. Either way, it was a highly enjoyable experience then. But the reason I was asking is because I did not remember it having so much CGI. So that's when you know it aged. Like when you watch it now and you're oh, okay, yeah, that's like now that looks bad. But back then it didn't. Like back then you didn't even think about it.
No, not at all. Yeah, I mean, yeah, totally. I totally agree. Yeah, I even actually have the exact date that we watched it, June 11th, 2009. So there you
go. But anyways, this is a fun, very kinetic film in general.
Oh yeah.
It's one of those movies where the camera is almost a character in and of itself, as well as the sounds around it.
Yes.
Do you know that apparently Elliot Page now had been casted for this film, and he pulled out because of like the SAG strike, the actors strike.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Interesting. I think it still would have been good. That would have been way different, though. I mean, I think Alison Lohman in this part is very, very good. So I don't think I'd make that substitution knowing what she brought to the table. But, that is a really interesting kind of alternate universe. I think the film still would have been solid, but it would have been very different.
It would have been different because Page back then, this
was right after Juno, right?
It's right after Juno, and like, generally speaking, the roles that Paige played were sort of like, I want to say low energy indie. And
low energy, intelligent indie, yeah. Yeah,
low energy, very intelligent indie, and it's kind of interesting how that would have fit into, this Southern girl who is trying to lose her accent and fit into the LA world in a bank while dating her professor, shitty boyfriend, and his shitty family. Like it's interesting to imagine Paige playing that role.
It's more insecurity than I've ever seen Elliot Page play, for sure. Because the role is just like very unsure of herself, very insecure about all kinds of stuff, and it does a very good job kind of guiding her through that. And I don't know if we've ever seen Elliot Page quite play that same sort of part.
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean,
not that I've seen, at least.
Because I haven't seen all movies from with Page, but from what I've seen, I mean, Juno, Inception, even TV show. I mean, I've seen Elliot Page play insecure characters. Actually, Elliot Page there's the Umbrella Academy. He's there, and the character is insecure, but it's still like a brainy insecure. It's a smart insecure. I don't know. It still doesn't. Like
It's still different.
It's still different.
I know what you're saying. Yeah,
like,
yeah.
It's an insecure person who plays second on the at the violin in a fucking orchestra. Like, I'm sorry, the second violin in an orchestra is still like, you're not that insecure.
Yeah.
Like
yeah. Fair enough. Yeah.
But yeah, it's kind of interesting to imagine that alternate universe where Elliot Page plays our protagonist.
Yeah. I am on the letterbox of this right now, and this film has a great tagline on there. It's Christine Brown has a good job, a great boyfriend, and a bright future. But in 3 days, she's going to hell.
Oh, I think that was in the trailer too. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you can even imagine trailer voice guy saying that.
What's funny about this movie is that when it comes to a horror film, and a film about hell, the lighting here is very bright. Most of the movies actually has like really bright, colorful locations. Even
it feels very California.
Exactly.
Very Southern California.
Like you're in LA or something like LA right away on. It's just interesting how that works out. I like that twist or that sort of turn in a way. It kind of gives it a little unique feel to so many dreary horror movies that you see once in a while.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, I didn't think about that, but yeah. You're definitely right.
The last interesting fun fact that I found in the internet is that originally Raimi did not want to direct this movie.
I saw that too. Yeah.
Yeah. He wanted Edgar Wright to direct it, but Edgar Wright was busy with Hot Fuzz.
Well, I think that worked out the best for everyone.
Yeah, Hot Fuzz is another great movie. Although Edgar Wright, I think Edgar Wright could have done a solid job too.
I think so too. I mean, Edgar Wright has said in the past that he's super influenced by Sam Raimi, it could have actually came out, somewhat similar at least. Especially if Raimi was like creatively collaborating as like a producer or something.
Mm-hmm. Anyways, let's jump a little bit more into the actual movie. So yeah, the movie has a couple of themes. When it comes to plot, it is a very simple plot. Not only is it a simple plot, but it's a simple lesson. If you're greedy, it doesn't matter how nice you act, you're fucked. Like, it's pretty much it.
Yeah. I mean, she was very sympathetic throughout, but yeah, I mean, she made one kind of shitty decision, and it bit her in the ass.
Exactly.
Do you think that's what the young Mexican boy did at the beginning too? He denied some poor old lady a loan.
No, he stole jewelry.
Oh, is that what it was? Okay.
Yeah,
there you go.
Yeah. The movie. I mean, the movie does a really good job at setting up the theme, right? Don't fuck with these people. Granted, actually, I want to jump into one last thing that aged poorly.
Sure.
Gypsy curse. We could say that it. I mean, by age poorly, I mean, well, nowadays, the gypsy community, the Roma community has been trying to work really hard to get rid of people, to have people stop using the word gypsy and have a lot of the Roma stereotypes, thrown at them, including them putting curses on people.
Yeah, well, it's true. It's like if you made this film 5 years later, they're not gypsies. It's you could just copy paste, control paste it, cut paste with something else. You'd have to think of something else.
Yeah, because you cannot put Roma, because that still makes the same problem.
Right.
You cannot be like, oh, no, she's not a gypsy lady, she's a Roma lady. No, it's the same problem.
Yeah. One thing I did find kind of interesting is like not having to do with the gypsies, but as far as like the other kind of spiritual gurus go, it kind of just takes from all over the place. It's like we have like more of a Mexican, Latin, like medium, and then we have like the man, I should come up with their names rather than just calling him the Indian guy. But we have
the actor.
Yeah.
The Dilip.
Yes.
Dilip Rao.
Yeah. Playing Ram Dass, and then we have like the assistant to the Mexican lady, who is like more Eastern European. So I thought it was kind of interesting that.
Right. Yeah. No, but none of them were WASP.
No. But it was all kind of like. They're all sort of stereotypes to some extent.
Oh, 100%.
But they take the stereotypes like from all over the place.
Yeah, no, for sure. This movie, when it came to its inappropriate racism, if you will, it pulled from everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, I would say overall, it's like the Roma stuff is probably the worst.
Yeah.
The other stuff, I mean, I think is fairly understandable and forgivable. But
oh yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I've seen much worse, and even when it's actually well-meaning, I've seen much worse. So here, I mean, and even the character portrayed by Rao, like it's not like he has a super thick accent or anything. In fact, or he's wearing a turban. Like the guy, it looks pretty chill. Knows Nietzsche and a bunch of other, philosophers. But he does.
He's a sympathetic character. He's a likable guy.
Yeah, he's a likable, modern guy. The Mexican medium. She is a little bit less. She's a little bit more of a stereotype.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
She's in it for like 10 minutes, so
And her scene is quite enjoyable.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I would say that the thing that aged the worst is probably the Roma thing. Even then, though, it's kind of interesting because back in 2009, like the whole like gypsy culture was kind of popular in the indie community. Like, at least I just think of of Go-Go Bordellos and gypsy punk and things like that. And I mean, the movie has a scene where you have the funeral of the old lady, and you get to hear like some of that gypsy music, and it is, I think, like actual like Roma music, and people just eating and talking, and sort of has that spirit that you would get with at least what you imagine to like that genre of music, like from Go-Go Bordello and things like that. So it's like a very communal, folks, very happy in general. And here's where you get to see the first scene where anyways, let's actually jump into the scenes, because I think I just wanted to throw that in just to be clear. It's probably fucked up, but
I gotcha.
Product of his time. But yeah, let's jump into the scenes. So I mean, what are your thoughts? I mean, what areas of the movie you like the most?
I like all the set pieces, I think, but the parking garage one is definitely really great, and it just feels like Raimi is bringing his A game there. Mm-hmm. All the bodily stuff that comes out too, and So I mean, I don't know which order you want to go in, but I like that too.
Yeah, let's go with the parking garage. I mean, by the way, do you know that car is a car from Evil Dead 2, the lady's car?
I found that out. I was listening to a podcast in preparation for this, and I did hear that, yes.
Yeah, I read it in one of the things that I was reading just now. So yeah, that scene, I mean, it does really good. The car scene kind of does a solid job at setting up a little bit of a mood in the garage. It's scary. You hear voices. You see the car, which, if you're a Raimi fan, it already probably gives you flashbacks to that movie. And then the lady's behind her, already sitting in the car. Now, in the scary level, how scary was this scene?
It's hard to judge the scary level, but I think for me in 2009, it definitely made me jump. and I'm kind of a jumpy guy. So yeah, I found it to be quite suspenseful. Certainly, that
It has the jump. I mean, it's a jump scare.
no
sort
doubt.
of.
Yeah, there's a handful of jump scares. I'm not anti jump scare, but
I generally am. However, here they are all.
well done.
Well, I'm anti jump scare when nothing happens. But here you got the jump scare, and then you got to fight.
I know. It's like, who thought that like one of the best parking garage fight scenes ever would be from like this 20-something woman bank teller and like this like 80-year-old gypsy woman. I mean, Roma, whatever. But
this old woman.
Really great. Yeah,
this old woman.
yeah. And you said it exactly right, where she just kind of appears in the car. And I feel like that's kind of like how Raimi does his horror and stuff in general. It's like he has just stuff coming from all kinds of directions, all kinds of places, not where you expect it and stuff like that. And as you kind of described it earlier, the scene is super kinetic. We have cars driving everywhere. It's like, it's very gross too, like mouths and stuff end up everywhere. The Foley on this is great. And I don't know. I mean, this scene very well might be one of the best set pieces in the whole film, even though it comes so early.
Yeah. I mean, in that way, the movie kind of spoils you because it does give you the best scene. I mean, it's a long fight. It's a very dynamic fight. I mean, tools are used. The young mortgage banker, she staples the old woman a couple times on the face.
Oh, yeah.
While the
yeah.
old woman is like ripping her hair. There's
Yeah.
a lot of hair ripping in this movie. Like that's a common theme. Like,
Yeah. I mean, this is the first scene in the film where you're like, okay, it's not exactly the same as Evil Dead, but we're back in that same Raimi realm.
yeah. I mean, by the way, do you think like our protagonist Chris Brown? I had to throw that in. Chris Brown is once again beating defenseless ladies.
Wow.
That was fucked. But our main character is Christine Brown, and they call her Chris throughout the movie.
Yeah.
She is definitely. She's a fighter. Same with the old lady. And of course, you got the biggest gross out scene, which is the lady trying to bite Chris.
Yeah.
But her dentures fell, so she's just sort of like slobbering on her.
Yeah. And we'd already heard like the really like kind of gross sound effects that Raimi had done in just a very ordinary scene where she's like asking for like an extension on her loan and stuff like that.
Right, her coughs, the mucus sound.
Yeah. So, no, this film just does a great job. I mean, for me, I find those like gross bodily sound effects and like that just to be really effective. I love it. So I feel like that's something that's fairly unique to Sam Raimi. So I'm a big fan.
I also like how, I mean, even the way the fight goes is like the problem solving that goes throughout the fight, where the girl basically is being choked. She gets to like put the car on drive and then sort of crashes against another car, and you got your classic Raimi close-ups and follow through of the planning of things. Meaning, she knows she's driving towards a wall, so the camera closes up to the one end of the of the seatbelt as she puts it on and follows, and it goes click. And it's just like that perfect frame of her clicking that right before the car crashes, so the lady flies off.
Yeah. I mean, and that's something that he probably does super well, too, thanks to his experiences on the Spider-Man films, too, is my guess.
Right. But you also would see it with, I mean, going back to, Evil Dead, especially Evil Dead 2 and the Army of Darkness, you would get that with the, whenever he was building a contraption. Like, so in Evil Dead 2, when he makes his chainsaw hand, you would have the close-ups of things just moving and just having really, when sound effects go, having very crisp clicks and just like and things like I don't know. It
Yeah,
just it
I mean,
gives you a feel, and Spider-Man 2 did that really well too with Doc
Yeah.
Ock.
and everything is just like slightly exaggerated. Like Nathaniel would probably throw a fit over some of the physics in this film, but I think if you just go with it's pretty enjoyable.
Yeah, 100%. So I mean, definitely this scene. I agree with you. I would say the car fight scene is really great. But this movie has a lot of other crazy scenes.
It does. It doesn't stop. It's not just one and done. It's not like the one set piece in the whole film.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about even how the movie starts, like your very first scene where you have the before you know what the evil may or may not be, you have that Mexican family with a child who stole the jewelry from this folks, and you got the medium, and she's trying to sort of do like an exorcism to the child, and in the background you already have the shadows going through and around, and sort of like, and this is the part what I love about Raimi is the hardcore punches from nothing. Everyone gets punched and just fly through, and then the child sort of runs away and falls in the middle of this beautiful house as hell opens up, and you don't get to see hell, but you see how the medium is just looking down to hell and to this demon and being like, I'll get you next time.
Right.
I mean, that's
right.
a really good opening.
Yeah. No, I think it works. Yeah, and then they kind of draw it all back at the end too. It's a cool set too. I mean, and they come back to it.
Yeah, I mean that house is beautiful. Like that, almost make that set almost actually reminds me of our good old Italian director. I'm blanking right now on his name, but the one we talked the most about.
Dario Argento.
Yes.
Yeah, it kind of has that like Gaudi, like almost European architecture to it.
Yeah. Lots of geometric shapes and whatnot.
Right.
So yeah, one thing about the parking lot, because I mean this movie, if we talk about characters, Christine Brown, I mean the movie sets her up as this like sweet 20-year-old or like late 20-year-old girl who is insecure about her body. She looks at cakes, but she doesn't want to eat because she has a past of being fat. She in her job, her boss is kind of a douchebag and wants to, like they're going to promote one person to being assistant manager at the bank, and it's between her and this like bro. And like they send her to get food. So I mean, it does try to create this very not relatable, but like a character, an endearing character for you, right?
Yeah.
She has her boyfriend who's kind of a douchebag, and the family of the boyfriend is like, no, don't take her. Like she's fucking, she's white trash.
Yeah.
And I mean, and the girl is so insecure that she has to like listen to tapes to be able to pronounce properly words with an LA accent as opposed to her Southern accent.
Right. Yeah.
And throughout what I was gonna say is that movie sets this like sweet girl basically, like, oh sweetheart, like poor lady, poor girl, and then like when she's fighting the old lady in the car, she basically, that's where her reality comes out in her own accent of Southern accent. She's like, I bitch you old bitch. Shit like that. So it sort of gives you a little bit of her real self.
Right. And it shows you that she's pretty tough too.
Yeah. But it also shows that she's not as nice as she may appear.
Yeah. I mean, about Chris Brown and kind of her job too. It's like one thing that did happen since this film came out is you ended up working for a few years at a bank. Did you find that how did you find sort of the bank company culture there? Was it like did it feel kind of realistic or not so much?
It's funny. Yeah, because when we watched it, I was not working at a bank, and then I worked. It's. I mean, realistically speaking, the banker is not so. Or at least when I worked at a bank, the mortgage banker is not the person who really has the power to give the old lady an extension, and perhaps not even the manager.
Right.
So, I mean, if we're talking about a realistic situation, right? So our main character, all of this starts off with an old lady who is going to lose her house because she has not paid her mortgage for like several months. She's gotten like 7 extensions or something like that. She goes to the mortgage banker, Chris, our main character, and asks for another extension, because if not, she's going to be on the street. Chris tells her basically that they're going to foreclose on her that very same day, which again, that doesn't happen either. Foreclosure takes quite a bit of time. It's a legal process. Yeah. So it's not like they can just come and kick you out right away. Although maybe it was already at the process, but at that point, the old lady, she could go to her and she would be like, you're going to have to see these people and a judge. Like, the process to even get an extension at that point would be even very hard. So realistically speaking, no, it's not very realistic. I mean...
what about, like, the company culture, so to speak?
Culture could be realistic. So that part... so one last element there is... And this is the part where I do believe that this was written before the mortgage crisis. Foreclosure actually did not make banks money. Like, when banks foreclose, they end up selling houses for... in 2009, the value of houses were so much lower than the loan amount that banks, even an expensive house, banks were going to were just recouping part of their losses. They were not.
Okay.
So if the old lady can prove that she could pay, it's almost better for the bank to actually not foreclose than to foreclose. Right?
I see. So yeah, a couple things to sort of, if you're inside banking, you would know.
Right.
It's not 100% realistic, at least.
Banks did try to foreclose really quick at the beginning, but that was more out of panic than anything else. Houses, the value of houses were dropping so fast that banks wanted to do things fast, but you have to go through the legal means and all that stuff. And again, none of that is done by your banker. I mean, a banker, even a mortgage banker, is kind of a glorified salesperson.
Right. I mean, that's one thing that I did learn from your stint working at a bank is how salesy those bank jobs are.
Right.
And it's just not something that I would have realized otherwise. And so probably a lot of it is I don't know, about like getting ahead and getting promotion stuff might be fairly realistic.
Right, exactly. So that part's realistic. It's realistic that, for example, she was really working hard on closing on, like a mortgage loan, things like that, to get mortgage loan deals. That's the part where banks really, that's what a banker does. Whether or not the extension area, realistically speaking, in the real world, she would have given the old lady a phone number and being like, call this number. I cannot do anything for you. These folks will do it. Will those folks help her? No, probably those folks would not help her, and the old lady would have cursed them and not our main protagonist. But the sales aspect is more realistic. But even then, mortgage bank. Again, I worked in 2010 where a lot I joined after the Dodd-Frank Act. I don't know if Dodd-Frank Act was enacted yet in 2009 when this movie came out. So I mean, like, it's funny. It came out in a very weird moment in history, where a lot of things changed right around when this movie came out.
Right.
What I do understand is that before, I mean, the mortgage crisis was created by bankers like her giving loan to people who could not pay for them.
Right.
That's the reality. Faking numbers, faking applications, and then the big banks creating basically securitizing this and selling those as securities, basically, or having mortgage-backed securities, even though they were toxic securities. That's the real crisis. Your mortgage banker, generally speaking, the evils that they committed were faking documents, not not being evil by denying extensions, but would having more sales, being aggressive at sales, be the thing that would get you promoted? 100% yes. That part is real. That's why they would fake documents before the mortgage crisis, or that part is the part where it is kind of true. And would a boss tell you, yeah, I would promote you if you were getting your numbers better, like, you know, the new guy? Yes, 100%. That would happen.
Interesting. Yeah.
So that part is real.
Yeah. Well, that concludes your segment of banking talk with Taki.
My bad.
Yeah. No, it's all good. That's your brief deep dive into the very specific time that this does take place. Yeah,
it's a weird thing. I mean, we're completely straight away from the movie, but going back to the actual movie, either way, what she did was shitty, because even the boss told her she had. So in movie world, she had the power to give the old lady an extension. That was in her power, and she chose not to, because she might lose that promotion. When in reality, I think a better person would have been like, I will give this extension and sell her a credit card.
There you go.
Yeah, there you go.
The compromise we all want.
It's still shitty. It's still shady.
Yeah.
But it might not have gotten you to hell.
Yeah. Yeah. Instead, some poor Amex rep is getting the button.
Exactly. Anyways, so yeah, that was. Anyways, that scene though, the scene where the old lady is asking for the extension, is a very well done scene though, I would say.
Yeah.
Does a really good job at presenting the woman, between her tapping of the nails on the table, her little shawl, the makeup. Oh my god, the makeup.
Yeah. And like just the noises when she's like putting stuff in her mouth and stuff like that. It's like, if there's one thing I remembered from seeing that film, it was all like the the very exaggerated cartoony sound effects that they did for everything coming out of her mouth.
Yeah, all the slimes
and the nails. Yeah.
So yeah, so the only times we see this old lady alive is there, and the car fight.
Yes.
And then after that, we see the funeral, which has probably, even though it's not a huge setup, I do love, again, first-person camera just crashing against this old corpse that is like on a fucking tomb.
Yeah.
As everyone's like mourning her, sort of. And then she falls right on top of the protagonist.
It starts like spewing out this green embalming fluid. It's pretty amazing. Yeah.
And as they pull her away, the body for some reason grabs onto her hair and once again rip hair away from her.
Yeah. And I just remember in the theater that those scenes just got a huge reaction. It was like,
I know.
It's kind of like with that weird stuff where it's like, it's really gross, but also pretty funny.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And the body's always looking at the main character.
Right.
So that was a pretty great scene. Obviously, that's a scene where you realize that our main character is fucked, because the old lady gave her a curse, but she did say, "Oh, you will be begging me. You made me beg. Well, you will be begging me later." And it's like there's never a later because the lady died of old age.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or she died of the injuries she had.
I mean, realistically, it had to be that. I mean, like, that was a pretty intense fight, and, you know, it's hard not to think that it's related.
Yeah, in fact, I mean, do you feel bad for the main character in the end?
Oh, no, I do, for sure. Yeah.
You do?
Yeah, no, I think she's sympathetic. I mean, I think she made one shitty decision, but I think for the most part, I don't know, she's flawed, like human beings are in general, but, I mean... I don't know. I do find her sympathetic. Yeah.
I mean, I agree in part. I think that this movie sort of. I mean, again, this is the simplicity of the movie, right? Her curse is literally the same, like similar to, a curse you would see in a Disney movie. Like the beginning of the Beauty and the Beast, literally.
Yeah.
It starts with a young boy did not want an old lady to go into the house, and he got cursed into becoming a beast, and all his employees became fucking objects because he didn't let an old lady into a house. Here is I didn't extend your mortgage. All right, you're gonna go to hell. I mean, that's the level. When you think about the plot, that's the level of sophistication we're thinking. Yet I actually enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No. I honestly. I mean, I can see why they would choose Raimi to direct something like Oz too. But yeah, no, absolutely. It's simple, but
Mm-hmm.
I think it's all just like a device to kind of run the character through the gauntlet.
Yeah. All right. So speaking of bodily fluids or gross stuff, what are we thinking about flies? Like, go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead.
No, like for example, having a fly is kind of a theme in here. You get to see them or hear them in different scenes. For me, probably one of the least gross scenes, if you think about it, yet to me so gross, is that fly that is flying when Christine is sleeping.
Yeah.
It sort of goes into her nose, one nostril and then out. Like, where are we?
Right.
How are we feeling about flies?
I don't get as grossed out by flies actually, but yeah, I mean it's a little gross. I probably wouldn't put it in like the top 5 things. I mean, they also bring that fly thing back to when she's having dinner with Apple Guy's parents, and and like it, like she imagines it in like the cake she made and stuff like that.
Well, the fly itself is actually real. In the cake, she sees an eye, which is a very classic Raimi kind of look of eye, which she stabs with a fork.
And then it like spews out. Yeah.
It spews out that no one else sees. But then she does cough the fly, and everyone saw that, especially Apple Guy's mom. By the way, Apple Guy.
Just along.
For the folks who,
Clay.
The professor, Professor Clay, portrayed by Justin Long, who back then, I mean, I don't know about you, but I think, only seen him in another very small movie, and lots of Apple ads.
I mean, even now, I really think he's Apple Guy. Like, he kind of has to be. I saw him actually in a film very recently called Barbarian, which he is great in, actually. He looks very much the same, just looks a little bit older. But he plays a completely douchey character there, so it's pretty enjoyable. But anyways, Apple Guy.
The reason I was saying that is because if there's anyone who's listening to us who's not from our generation, who would actually not get the reference.
Oh, that's true. That's true. I guess he it's kind of funny if you look at it back then. It's like the three people I remember being in all those ads were Flo from Progressive, who is still doing those ads. I still get those all the time. Justin Long as the Apple guy, which I have not seen those in ages, so I assume he stopped at some point. And then Jared, who went the most dark route of all. We don't have to go there. But if you have not heard of Jared from Subway, you can Google it.
Yeah. No, I mean, there was the other guy. I mean, in those Apple ads, there was that guy and another writer and comedian who would portray the PC. And that guy, I don't think, you only see him once in a while, like doing a very small cameo. Justin Long basically has had a real career. However, for anyone in our generation, basically anyone who graduated around 2000, between 2004 to 2007, will see Justin Long as graduated high school, by the way, those years. We'll see Justin Long as the Apple guy.
Yeah, and I don't think that's going away anytime soon.
No, he's the Apple guy. I just wanted to make clear for any listener who is not in our generation.
Yeah,
this guy, this is what he's known for. So Google Apple ads Justin Long, and you will understand. It was a million ads every other day, every fucking second on any TV, on any show.
Yep. He was on the TV all the time, and he was mostly known for ads. I mean, I think
Anyways,
so,
weird tangent. So, anyways, the other thing that I love in this movie, if we're talking about true, like Sam Raimi Evil Dead 2 feels, is the house. The two scenes where Christine is alone in the house.
Yeah.
This is where basically you have a closed house and lots of noises. Metal screech. You have like a metal screeching noise. You have like doors banging. You have just creaking everywhere. And sort of the first person camera of a demon moving around.
Right, which is like super Evil Dead, like that first person point of view.
Exactly. And some very hyperactive, like, I mean, she's thrown around, but like in many of those scenes, like you see sort of like a shadow, and then it's that shadow somehow hits her and she flies, but the sound effect is of a punch, which a cheap punch to be more precise. And it makes it very enjoyable for me. What do you think?
Yeah, I love it too. It's just vintage Raimi. I mean, that's why this film very well could have been Evil Dead 4. It's just like the way that she's flying around. These scenes are very, very Evil Dead. It's just a different setting, and you don't have Ash there. Instead, you have Chris Brown instead.
Yeah.
They're great. They're all pretty fantastic. And the physics of them work very much in a very similar way to how the physics in the car scene work. It's definitely very fantastic, and stuff like the stuff that's happening is not realistic. But for things like demons and like the Lamia torturing her, it's the right choice.
Yeah, it's borderline slapsticks, but still, like, it's fun enough. She does a great job at being the new Bruce Campbell, if you will.
Yeah.
Because she reacts to those punches just in a similar way. She even reacts in many ways. Like there's that scene where because there's two house scenes and they both have lots of like Dutch angles. The music. Because I mean it's a mixture between the sound effects and the music. So I mean the music was by Christopher Young. The music between those two, it's very lovely. I mean, in the second scene, house scene, it's you have this string orchestra sort of music with the plucking of violin plucks, and it just sort of creating the sound of the demon traveling around and this shadow with the good contrast on white curtains. All of that is just very, very enjoyable. Again, not necessarily scary, but it could be.
Yeah, I mean, I would say I think our audience was scared when they saw it in 2009.
Yeah, yeah. Um, and of course, I like the second part where basically you set up that Christine is a vegetarian, perhaps even a vegan. I don't know about that. And at the end, she ends up killing her kitten because she wants to give that to Lamia.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, that's one of my favorite kind of cuts in the film where it's like all of a sudden like, oh, dead cat.
So apparently, there is an unrated version.
I heard this, yeah. And they actually show it in fairly gory details that I heard.
Yeah. But, we're talking about the theater version, which is non-gory.
Yeah. Well, if you want a quick road to heavy audience disapproval, start killing pets. I mean,
100%.
That is going to get reaction to the people. So I do understand why they cut it. But I personally would have been okay seeing that.
Well, they also cut it because it's a PG-13 film.
Ah, fair enough.
The studio wanted it to be PG-13, and they wrote it to be PG-13. They probably did shoot that scene, but they decided to keep it. The other scene that I kind of think it's funny is her nosebleed in the bank. And if you want to give me actually a flashback to when I used to work at a bank, I'm prone to have nosebleeds, and everyone freaks the fuck out when you have a small one. And hers is not a small one.
Yeah, it just does like arterial spraying. It's like Kill Bill Volume 2 all of a sudden.
I know.
It's just like going all over her manager. And I mean, it's like, did it get in my mouth? Did it get in my mouth?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I totally forgot about that scene, but it's just another great example of how physical and also funny that this film is.
Yeah. And then, and I mean, even in the dialogue, this movie's kind of good. When she meets Clay's parents, who are complete douchebags as well. I mean, they're like snobs. They start talking about, she's talking about cats because his cat is like hissing at her, and she's like, "Oh, I know how cats are. I had one." Clay's like,
"Yeah,
you had one. You have one." She's like,
"Yeah,
maybe."
Yeah, I laughed at that too. Yeah.
I mean, it is kind of sad at the same time. And then perhaps the most cartoony scene in this movie is the scene where she once again gets attacked by the ghost of the old lady, and you literally have her defeating her by having an anvil fall on her.
Yeah.
This is like Warner Brothers cartoon, like Looney Tunes.
Yeah. Very close to it, yeah.
Anyways, and then we have our sort of big ending with this. Not the ending, the false ending with the seance.
Yes.
Tell me about it. What are your thoughts about it? What do you like? What do you do not like?
Yeah, I mean, in some ways, this is an interesting scene to analyze because it does use a fair amount of CG, most of which is, in my opinion, just okay at this point. But I do like the set, and I do like a lot of parts of that. I do also like a lot of the camera movement and the whirling and stuff like that. And I forget exactly what some of the dialogue was in that scene. But I did enjoy that. It's like the part about like the cat. I forget what her and the Lamia talk about when they're talking about the cat. Mm-hmm. So I'd say I mostly like it. It's not my favorite scene in the film, but I think it, for the most part, does what it needs to do. I think some of the CGI is maybe not the best, but yeah.
Which CGI are you referring to?
Like stuff with the goat and stuff.
So apparently the goat was actually mostly a puppet.
Oh, okay. Well,
yeah. Apparently the goat was mostly a puppet. Like when the goat actually bites her. And then of course the floating people, that they use the same effect that they would use in Evil Dead. In fact, to me, this is one of the scenes where you have that Evil Dead feel, where the evil spirit, possesses different people. So I mean, first it's on the goat, mm-hmm. right? Which is a puppet. It's filmed in a really funny way, but I think it's because they use the same puppets that they use in Evil Dead 2, because Evil Dead 2, the stuffed animals would move and talk, and I think the same puppeteers did the puppet here for the goat.
Interesting.
Yeah,
I mean, some of the flying and stuff works generally okay.
I mean,
Yeah.
he's been doing the flying since the 80s.
Yeah.
So it's just a string.
Yeah.
They tried to hide it. I don't know how, but I think this one is kind of funny because I mean you have the scene where like the demon gets that other Eastern European guy and starts dancing.
Yeah.
So that's kind of weird, and that's when the demon kind of flies to her and he's like, "I want your soul. I don't want your fucking cat." And that's when it pukes the cat onto her.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah. and that's a little bit of mediocre CGI, but it's still a good moment.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah.
And somehow the medium kills it. However, then she dies.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, the stupid Eastern European guy, if he had just correctly used his sword on the goat, it would have been all over.
Instead of getting bitten.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we get our Nathaniel moment number 2. The reader. I'm trying to remember the name of the character. Ram Jazz, the reader, portrayed by Rao, basically is like, hey, there's another way to defeat it. However, to fix a Nathaniel moment, she's like, why didn't you tell me earlier? It's like, well, because if you do it, then I would be helping you give someone else a death sentence.
But now you have no other option. So
yeah, so there you go.
Plus, I was getting a cut of that $10,000.
Exactly. So here, I think if we're talking about like drama scenes, this is probably one of the better dramatic moments. Sam Raimi, I feel like when it comes to drama, he's not known for that, but it's the scene where she's in the cafe trying to figure out who to give the curse to, and I think again, not top-notch drama, but I like it. I actually think it's quite dramatic. Like she's looking at different people. Everyone is sort of happy. She sees an old alone man, wants to go there, give it to him, but oh no, he also has a loving wife. A little bit selfish, perhaps. Why don't you just give it to the old people? But whatever. And she's eating ice cream and treating the server like shit. And her southern accent is all out.
Yeah. True.
Good. I would say it's a good scene. It's a good. I think it does a good job also of having her full character arc. She's no longer hiding.
Yeah, talking about this film and Halloween Ends together too, it's kind of interesting because I feel like this film, the cohesion really is there, and like it feels like it's a very much like a focused effort in a way that the other film doesn't. So yeah, I think all that stuff you just described is basically works fine.
Yeah, and I also like how like cohesion is the proper term. It's how it flowed into that. Like you understand why she's eating tons of ice cream now, even though before she wasn't. You understand why she doesn't care about hiding her accent.
Yeah.
And even after all of that, perhaps this is the one time where she actually portrays herself as a good person, because she has the chance of, well, she believes she had the chance of killing Stu, her coworker, who not only turned out to be a complete asshole, misogynistic, but also a fucking giving a business deal to the competitor bank, and just then trying to frame her and a crybaby at the same time. I mean, just the worst.
Yeah. I mean, he's like the nightmare coworker.
Like if there was someone you would give that fucking button, that curse button would be to him.
Yeah.
And she does not give it to him because he cried.
Yeah.
And I would say... Huh?
Oh, nothing. Go ahead.
No, I would say... But that leads to realizing, and this is a true Nate moment, she can give it to dead people. And it's funny because the car scene is probably one of the best car scenes, but to me, my favorite actually was a cemetery.
I like the cemetery too. In fact, in some ways, it kind of, it's definitely not the same, but in some ways, it reminds me a little bit of like Phenomena. It's one of the few kind of like nighttime scenes, and I just love how fast that grave, like she got to dig it up. A little bit of Evil Dead vibes there. I feel like this film uses that Evil Dead shot a couple times of like a hand reaching out, too. So I always like that. And then like it starts to rain and it's just all messy. It's so physical, everything that happens, and it's like she's struggling in there with like the body of the old dead woman and herself just getting like kind of like just overflowing with water. I love it too. I think that's definitely top 2 or 3 scene for me.
And this is, I mean, obviously the set design is beautiful. Like the set design is just, very moody, very old school, like horror movie, especially with the lightnings. But also, this is a one-man show, and Alison Lohman.
Yep, Lohman.
Yeah, Alison Lohman. She does an amazing job. Like, I mean, it's just her and a fucking puppet. And it's not even a puppet, actually, because it's not moving. I don't think anyone is holding that. Or perhaps, like, it's her on a mannequin of a corpse. That's it. And she does a really good job, like, with the physicality, fighting that body, just getting her hair pulled out again.
Yeah.
And then, the rain sort of like flooding her. All of that, I think it's really a testament of how good she is at the physical acting. It's kind of a shame that she was never in any other good movie.
Yeah. Well, I don't think she acts much these days, so.
Yeah, I think she retired.
Okay. Yeah, it's too bad. I mean, I would have liked to see her in more. I also would have loved to see Raimi direct more films like this.
Yeah. I mean, she could have been the next Bruce Campbell, easily.
Yeah. No, I mean, in some ways, I prefer her over Bruce Campbell, who, I mean, might be a little blasphemous to say, especially on, like, a very Raimi gushing pod, but I sometimes it's just a little too slapstick for me.
She is the better actor.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I agree with that, yeah.
Yeah, she's the better actor. Anyways, that's I would say, to me, that's my favorite scene. Especially because, it gives you those fake outs. Did she die drowning? She was fucking trying to shove the button down the throat of the corpse. Also, she didn't really need to do that. She did not need to do that.
Overkill.
Yeah, but it's because she wanted to. She literally was like, I'm gonna shove this down her throat, and like she basically did it.
Yeah, she did.
And of course, we get our ending. Perhaps the part where I remember the whole theater. We're talking about like an area where the whole theater like blew up, or not blew up, but it sort of went like wow. Was when she meets up in the end. Everything seems to be going great. She ends up getting that promotion. She meets her shitty boyfriend to catch the train somewhere, because I don't even know where they were going. And he tells her, oh yeah, by the way, I got your button. I think you took my coin by accident.
Yeah. Just classic horror movie stuff. I mean, other than, I think, the somewhat fake-looking part where she actually gets dragged to hell, it's on point.
It is on point. It's funny, because I think her character, she could have done, at that moment, she's like, you know what? If she was a truly bad person, she's going to be like, you know what? You can keep it. I give it to you right now.
Yeah. She had one last chance.
Yeah, because he's holding it.
Yeah.
Instead, she grabs it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, what are your final thoughts about it?
I think it's great. I think a lot of what we covered is just is why I really enjoyed the film, just like the kinetic nature. I think it's one, if you saw it and then if you're like kind of doing a deep dive on Raimi, I think you might get a greater appreciation just to see kind of how it connects to his other films, because like on a first glance it does seem to stand out. It's made in a different era than those Evil Dead films, and after Spider-Man and stuff, but it really is in many ways a kind of a spiritual successor to those movies. So I really like it. It might be a little blasphemous, but I think I like it about at a very similar level to Evil Dead 1 and 2. So I don't put it beneath those films at all.
I agree. I think it's been a long time since I've seen Evil Dead 2. Although I watched this movie around the same time I saw Evil Dead 2, and I remember liking this one more than Evil Dead 2. So if we're talking about blasphemy, I mean, that's considered blasphemy. Because a lot of people think Evil Dead 2 is better than Evil Dead 1. I am of the few that prefers Evil Dead 1.
I like them about equally, but yeah, I do think the consensus is Evil Dead 2 is a little better.
Yeah, I'm one of the few. To me, Evil Dead 1 is just a solid horror movie. Evil Dead 2 is a horror comedy that is pretty decent. Army of Darkness, which is Evil Dead 3 technically, is a silly, nonsensical movie that you watch in a crowd with lots of alcohol, and then highly enjoyable without those situations. And this one actually is a fairly good follow-up for that, and definitely better than Evil Dead 3, at the same level or perhaps better than Evil Dead 2, in my opinion. And then, yeah, when we talk about Spider-Man, I mean, Spider-Man 2 is probably the closest to those two.
Yeah. Spider-Man 2 easily the best of his Spider-Man movies.
Yeah. And actually, to not throw so much shade on modern movies, but the Doctor Strange film, there are numerous scenes where I put them at the same level as this movie. Unfortunately, not as an entirety of a movie, but there are numerous scenes and sequences that I put at the same level.
Right.
You just have to ignore the plot.
Yeah.
What is your souvenir?
Not the button. I'll tell you that much. I ain't taking no button. Shit. I don't know. Is there a right answer here?
Do you want this? Do you want the screening? The screaming? What's it called? Not napkin, but the thing that the lady had, like that cloth thing.
I'll just take the goat. Goat tastes good. Slaughter it, get some meat.
I'm gonna take the I'll take the old lady's car.
Okay. Yeah. There you go.
Hopefully it's not cursed.
Yeah.
Okay. What are we rating it?
I am going to go 8.5.
Yeah, I'll match it.
Yeah,
so yeah, all in all, everyone go see it. I believe that Peacock doesn't have it anymore, so it's okay. You can rent the real deal anyways.
Yeah, it's one of those movies that circulates. It cycles between streaming platforms, so it'll be around.
Yeah, exactly. Although it's Universal, so I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah,
because Universal is owned by NBC, so that's why I'm like.
So maybe it'll be back on Peacock in a few months. Who knows?
Yeah. Anyways, hope everyone had a great Halloween. Since that just happened. Actually, did you do anything for it? Did anything scary happen?
No.
All right. Yeah, nothing happened here either. Anyways, yeah. If you have any comments, questions, concerns for some reason, you can always hit us up at zafilm2film@gmail.com. That's zafilm2film@za.com. Also, you can go on Twitter and be like on tweet at zafilm2film, or on YouTube at zafilm2film. We haven't changed our handle, right?
No.
On it.
No, I have not.
All right. Excellent. All right. Anyways, ciao.
Adios.